Welcome back to VL Speaks, a little ancient wisdom with a modern twist. It's been a little bit, yeah, but I'm back. Alrighty, I hope you got to watch the last episode on resetting and pivoting, because this episode is definitely, episode 30, is going to be piggybacking on that, okay? And I've called it the sticking point because we all have them, right? We start making new goals for ourselves. We decide to recommit to things that we want to do. And then we find points that we're like, oh, I'm getting stuck on that. I really want to change that, but why am I getting stuck on that? Do you even ask yourself that question? Because it's a good question to ask yourself. Not necessarily to get caught up on, but to ask yourself. So I'm going to tell you something that I've told you before, and that is to get yourself a notebook and a pen. I know, it's like a little bit like school, right? I don't mean to be a school marm, but it's important. And I know that I love to write things down because I find it very helpful to go back and read notes. Even when I'm watching a TED Talk, I'll always have my journal next to me because I'm like, oh, that's a really good thing to remember. And of course, with TED Talks, you can stop and start again, much like this. So if you need to stop for a second, go and get your journal or a notebook and a pen or a pencil. I'm more of a pen gal. I like ink. It's permanent. Alrighty. So if you're getting stuck on different things, what's really important is to try to identify it. All right? So if you just paused and came back, identifying where your sticking points are important because they are usually related to attachments. Yeah, attachments. Things that we get too fixated on, and also when you're trying to make changes, right? There's a lot of fear that comes up. Can you do this? Will you stick to it? Are there other things? Are there other factors coming into play that could stop you from doing this? But typically, attachments step in. And attachments are usually linked to fear. FOMO, fear of missing out in some cases. But let's start with your life, okay? So I am a firm believer that everything starts in the field of the mind, okay? Whatever thoughts there are, whatever narratives are playing there in your subconscious, things start in the field of the mind. And that's where, from there, that's where things get created. Whether we're conscious about it or not conscious about it, doing it by default or doing it on purpose, that's where it starts. So start with your thoughts, right? Are there certain things that you're attached to with the way that you're thinking that may not even be what you really believe, but it's just in there and it's stuck in there? Are there any things like that? Okay, and it can be related to anything, really. And I'm going to get into specifics when I start talking about attachments and how it plays out. I will be sharing some stories with you. So your thoughts, your beliefs are things that you just keep thinking, right? That's eventually what it becomes at a very fundamental level. Then you have your values. Okay, your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, and then how that ties into your behaviors and your relationships. And I broke it down that way because when I was writing notes for myself and how I wanted to approach this, I found myself getting stuck, right? I found myself getting stuck on, well, what's really important and how to address this in a way that everybody can understand it, making it simple to understand and then easier for you to kind of break it down in your own life, all right? We all have urges. We all have those primal urges, right? Food, sex, self-preservation, sleep, all right? And some people get stuck on all four or just a couple of them. But when you're thinking about those basic urges, think about where those sticking points might be related to those things, right? those primal urges of food, sleep, sex, and self-preservation. Okay? Gives you an idea of where things are fitting for you. Okay, when I think of self-preservation, I definitely think of money, also food, right? And also what's around me. Who can I trust? Who can I not trust? What can I trust within myself? Self-preservation brings up a lot of issues. That one alone brings a lot. And of course, sex, which I'm not going to delve into too much right now because that is a hot topic and we got to handle that one skillfully. But we will go into the others. So food, you might be wanting to make a pivot with your diet, right? Now, there are some people that use food to comfort themselves. I know I have, right? Or to try and control something, right? Having to do maybe with your weight or how you look at yourself or how you feel. Food can be medicine in many ways, and food is an enjoyable thing to partake in. But is it that for you? Right? Are you using food in some way that is creating some unhealthy attachments? And then there are people that use food as a means of controlling things in their life, like things that display themselves as anorexia or bulimia. And I've worked with those clients. Very interesting to see how they would use food to try and control things, but at the same time be incredibly detrimental to their self. And that has to do with more self-esteem issues as well. So I'm going to tell you a little story about a client that I had many moons ago. She was considered to be successful by her peers. She was a lawyer. She was probably in her late 30s. She had 2 law offices. She was from a different country in Europe. And on the outside, everything looked pretty good. You know, she wore very nice clothing, not totally overstated, but very chic. She had nice friends. One of her friends had referred her to me as a client. And the major thing, because my specialty was working with special populations, so on the surface, she looked fine. She looked healthy even. Come to find out, she had problems with bulimia and anorexia. So before we could start any of our sessions, I had to ask, when was the last time that you ate and when was the last time that you threw up? Because there was no point in her exerting herself physically or otherwise if she had no nourishment whatsoever. Also come to find out that her personal life was fraught with problems. Her relationship with her father, who apparently was a very successful man in his career. I don't know if he was that successful overall as a human being. And I guess, again, this kind of stuff brings into question values, right? What do we believe is valuable, and therefore that's how you determine whether or not you're being successful in the world. But back then, that was the way that a lot of people thought, and I was in my 20s and I had a very different idea of what success was, because I thought, what's the point of having 2 law offices and nice clothes and jewelry and supposedly nice friends, but dealing with that, dealing with basically really a lot of self-harm. But in working with her, and she was also in a relationship with a married man who had no intention of leaving his wife for her. So you can see what this looks like here, right? But what I learned from that situation with her was that food was what she felt she could control, and also that she was deathly afraid of looking fat because of what that would mean societally and in her social circle. And she also didn't have very much respect for herself or other people's time. Now, it could have been that she wasn't good at time management because her brain wasn't functioning properly, because she was overworked and stressed and also not eating. And whatever she ate, she expelled it. So this image, this belief, this attachment to what she felt she had to be for other people and in her social circle, those attachments were doing her a great deal of harm. And she had everything. She was working with everything. She was working with the food. She was working with the sex bit. She was working with self-preservation and also an incredible attachment to title and money. And it was destroying her body. And eventually I had to uh, end the relationship, the working relationship, because I knew that even though she had a therapist and that I was doing the best that I could to be there for her, it wasn't working. And so I said, this is beyond my realm of expertise at this point, and I do not feel good in, basically pummeling you whenever you come here to exercise, and then we could be doing more harm than good. No. So I stepped away from that, and I could have let the attachment to the money come into play, but I decided I wasn't going to let that be the case with me because our values weren't in alignment. Righty? So I'm just giving you that as an example. Maybe you can glean some things from that, but that's just one example of, like, let's say how attachment to food and money and sex and self-preservation were, and a lack of self-esteem and self-love came into play with someone. And I hope that she's okay. I don't know what happened to her. Lost contact. Alrighty. So I'm going to give you another example of attachment to money and how that fear of missing out, FOMO, can actually be incredibly detrimental to your health. So this was, again, another couple, a couple that I worked with. First, I worked with the fiance. She soon became fiance. And then they eventually got married. So then I was working with both of them. But I started off with her first. They were both in finance. This is in New York City. Both in finance, up at 3 o'clock in the morning because she had a lot of European clientele that were part of her portfolio, her investment portfolio that she was managing for people. And she was also kicking back about maybe 6 espressos a day, missing meals, and then would want to go running and then come in and be like, all right, what are we doing together? And of course, I would go through the litany of things. When was the last time that you ate? How much espresso did you have today? And let's figure out what we're going to work on based on everything that you told me. What is it that you really need today as opposed to what you want to do, which was just go, 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 go. Now, when I met the fiance, then became husband, his issue was that he was bleeding. His gastrointestinal system was not doing well. He also would miss a lot of meals, was in mergers and acquisitions, could only eat mashed potatoes. That was the only thing that didn't create a lot of pain in his gut. And of course, in his intestines and bowels. Also a heavy coffee drinker. And basically just sitting through mergers and acquisitions for hours, completely stressed. And the both of them definitely fell into the category of work hard and play even harder. So the weekends were more sleep deprivation. Yeah, let's go skiing and let's go ski hard. Everything was a competitive sport. There was no balance. And this is what the rest of their friends were like as well, apparently. And I remember asking, why do you stay in this industry? It seems to be really causing you a lot of duress and also premature aging, might I add, because they were only in their 30s. And I remember the wife saying, well, we've got golden handcuffs. And I was like, what was that? What is that? Because I was in my early 20s. And basically, if they walked away from what they were doing, there was a lot of money on the table and they couldn't take clients with them. And there were NDAs, non-competes. So eventually they wanted to have a child, which I didn't quite understand. I had quite a few clients for a while that were having children that they didn't take care of, but they had enough money to pay someone else to take care of them, and that their children didn't listen to them, but did listen to their nannies. And considering what both of these people were going through, and especially him, because bleeding from your gut, bleeding ulcers and stuff like that, serious. Also means that you're not getting a lot of nutrients into your system. You're not assimilating any nutrients. And she was insistent that she was going to get pregnant because she was in her mid-30s. And I, in good conscience, could not see myself continuing to work with her. Although I loved working with prenatal and postnatal clients, I just could not see myself doing it. And so I didn't say as much, but I think they kind of got it, because I thought, why don't you take care of yourselves, like nourish yourselves, prepare yourself for this process of creating a baby, a life. And I don't think they liked it too much. And I thought, well, my services aren't needed here anymore. I have no idea what happened to the child. I believe she went full term, but I have no idea. But here we are, the attachment to money and how it affected their health, but they thought they were just going to keep going at it and that there would be no repercussions. I don't know. What do you think? What would you do if you had a bleeding ulcer? Yeah? But these attachments, the fear of something being taken away from you, you want to examine, is that happening in your life? It may not be happening as extreme as it was for these folks, but it could be little things. So what I'm recommending for you to do right now is to write down the sticking points that you're having right now with making changes, and then speak to those sticking points. If you think you understand why it is that you're having a sticking point to that, write that down. Okay? Speak to each of those things, which is going to mean that you need to take some time to reflect. Right? So pick the time of day where you know you're going to have time, and you're going to make the time to do this, because this is your work to do. No one else can do this for you. I mean, we can listen to motivational speakers. We can read books. Absolutely wonderful thing to do. I love reading books that inspire me, and novels and stuff like that that move me, that I'm brought in and entertained. It's wonderful. Even movies, huge movie buff, huge. And art. But make time to pull away from all of those extraneous noises and make time for you to do this work. So you're going to need time for self-reflection in order to get this done. Now, you write down your sticking points and then just jot down a few words. It doesn't have to be a sentence. If you feel like going there, go there. Elaborate as much as you want. But speak to those sticking points, okay? Not in a judgy way. Be kind with yourself. It's not like you're trying to beat yourself into submission to change. It doesn't work like that. You have to love yourself in the process. And we are all of those things, right? It's the light and it's the shadow. It's about integrating all of these things and then improving upon them over time. There are some people that overnight, boom, done, did it, next. But empirically speaking, those people are very far and few in between. And sometimes there are folks that are just good at, let's say, in their professional life, right? And then there's a whole other part of their lives that is not being addressed. I want you to be a whole integrated person, because that's what you are and that's what you were born to be, right? Have a full experience of being alive and improving upon that in whatever way you can. I remember my teacher, PRT, Pandit Rajmani Chiganaya, for those of you that are just stopping in, he told me years ago, use your strengths to overcome your weaknesses. And that stays with me. It's one of those pearls that I have on the strand that's wrapped around my body. These pearls of wisdom that I've gained from being around people that are wiser than I, and also doing the work. All right. So sticking points, speak to those sticking points as to what, in a loving way, as to what you think it might be related to. Then I want you to take on another page and I want you to write down your strengths. What do you believe your strengths are? And you might want to ask someone that you know is very close to you, that you trust and that you love and that they love you. Ask them what your strengths are, not your weaknesses. Write down your strengths. You want to empower yourself. Constantly focusing on the negative is not going to do that. Beating yourself up is not going to help you love yourself. It just doesn't work like that. So sticking points, speak to them. And another page, your strengths. And next to your strengths, then you write your weaknesses. And then what I want you to do is see if you can match up a strength to help you overcome a weakness. I've done this exercise. I decided to do it because I remember what my teacher told me, and I was like, oh, I've got sticking points here. I got things I got to get over here. I'm not going to get them all done today or tomorrow or in the next month, but over time, things will get better. And accepting yourself in the process the way that you are, whatever that may be. Okay? But then see what you can match with your strengths. Like, oh, And I like to write things down because it helps me integrate it more into my mind. There is something about writing, okay, and cognitive abilities. Write. And if you don't have a journal, get one, because I'm a big fan of journaling. So do that practice, and then start with the simple things in your life. Regulating your sleep, making sure that you're drinking enough water and healthy fluids. Exercise. It could be walking around the block 3 times. It could be walking your dog 3 times instead of twice. It could be going up and down the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Be kind to yourself. If you have heart problems, be mindful of that. If you haven't done any activity at all, check out the episode that I did on exercise. I don't remember the number right now, but it's there. I did it last year. Check it out and listen more intently. Listen to your body. And listen to the people around you that you know that you can trust and believe in. And find yourself surrounded with people that know more than you do, that are wiser than you. Spend time with people that are wiser, that have been through things, that can tell you a thing or two, because you can look at them and say, wow, look what they've been through and look what they've overcome. This could be a good time. I am a firm believer in mentors. Firm. And I am also the type of person that likes to have people around her that she can look up to. Even still, even as I'm graying and getting a little bit long in the tooth, as they say. I know why they say that. It's because of gum recession. Gum line recession. But anywho, I think it's important to have people around you that you go, yeah, I like them. I've got my elder women and some elder men in my life that I really love listening to them speak, because I know that I'm going to learn things. And you might want to ask them, like, how did you overcome this? How did you overcome that? If you don't have those people around you, but you've got good insurance, you might want to try finding someone that you can speak to professionally, a therapist or a social worker. Whatever it takes. But start with the basics. Get back to the basics and then join in with people that are uplifting, that you feel uplifted and motivated, because we're all here together and we're all meant to help one another grow. That's a good definition of love. I've been reading this book, All About Love by Bell Hooks, and I recommend that book. That's a book that I'm going to recommend. Yeah, All About Love, because she's hitting everything. It's not schmaltzy, she's getting into some serious statistics, not too much, it's not too scholastic or academic, but she is citing some other good books that I'm like, oh, I got to go and read that. But all about love, and it starts with self-love, when you want to make changes. Accepting where you're at now and knowing that you can do better. That's what it's all about. And that means that you've got a healthy lifestyle going on, right? And a healthy lifestyle is all encompassing. It's all of it. And little by little, you'll see yourself making changes. And you may see yourself in a year from now going, huh, look at that. Got that done. Right on. Oh, one more thing before I sign off. I'm also, in addition to journaling and writing, I like a good vision board. Now, you can do it many different ways. You can get yourself a cork board. I recommend cork. And you can cut out pictures of things that you see, that you aspire to, It's not so much about things that you want to have, although you can definitely put that on there. I would use it also about you. The things that you want to improve upon. That's definitely on my vision board. It's got its own column, and I add to it. And then when I feel like I'm making headway, I take it off and I put something else up. And so I redo the vision board periodically. And you might find you're doing it in different colors. I like index cards, however you want to do it. I recommend that you do it because it keeps it keeps things in front of you. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the hysteria of life. You know what I mean? In the grind. But take time to slow down and look at that vision board, and it's a good thing to teach kids too, I think. I believe that. So leave comments. Please be sure to leave comments about anything that you think may be helpful, a tip for someone else, something that I didn't touch on, any questions that you have. Again, this is a community. We're building a community here. It's not just about me speaking. I'm speaking with you. Yeah, not just to you. So please be sure to be respectful and kind and mindful. And remember that everybody's got different views, but just make it respectful. Okay? Well, thank you for stopping in. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Take good care of yourself and stay cool this summer. Yeah. Ready? Ciao.